In the city of brotherly love, where the skyline glimmers with promise against the twilight sky, lies a tale that cuts deeper than any shadow cast by its towering spires. This is not just a story of two lives intertwined. It is an exploration of the fragile threads that bind us, threads spun from ideals, secrets, and the weight of expectations. We are drawn into a world where perfection is both celebrated and deceiving. A beacon of luxury perched in the heart of Center City. Here, amidst crystal chandeliers and plush velvet drapes, fate took its turn. But before this fateful night unfolded, there were two people. One standing behind a pulpit, his voice resonating with unwavering conviction. The other seated on a bench of justice, her rulings as sharp as the blade of truth itself. Pastor Dion Waverly, a man whose sermons stirred hearts and minds, spoke of purity and commitment with a fervor born from scars hidden beneath his collar. Judge Sarah Caldwell, revered for her intellect and fairness, presided over courts with a calm authority that masked the turmoil within. Their paths crossed at a charity gala, where smiles and handshakes belied the complexities each carried in silence. And so began a journey that would lead them from admiration to tragedy, all in the span of 24 hours. Now, as the city sleeps and the echoes of their story ripple through the halls of justice, one question remains unanswered. Was it betrayal, passion, or simply the collision of two imperfect souls? The jury deliberates, but the verdict rests not only in their hands, it lingers in the hearts of those who dare to look beyond the surface. In the heart of Philadelphia, where history meets the present, two people lived lives that seemed perfect from the outside but carried hidden struggles within. Pastor Dion Waverly, a 36-year-old man known for his powerful sermons on purity and commitment, stood as a respected figure in North Philadelphia. At St. James African Methodist Episcopal Church, his words inspired many, painting him as a model of moral strength. But behind this strong image was a man shaped by a difficult childhood. Growing up in a strict Pentecostal home in Germantown, Waverly witnessed his parents' marriage fall apart in a cycle of fights and unhappiness. This left deep scars, driving him to embrace a life of rules and ideals he hoped would protect him from the pain he once knew. Still, those early wounds lingered, quietly influencing his choices and shaping who he became. Judge Sarah Caldwell, a 34-year-old common pleas court judge, was admired for her sharp mind and dedication to justice. To most, she appeared confident and unshakable as she presided over cases at the Philadelphia County Courthouse. Yet, away from the courtroom, Sarah faced challenges no one saw. She battled ongoing health issues tied to a past she kept hidden, a past filled with more than 50 relationships, each born out of a need for connection or escape. Her guarded nature wasn't about pride. It was her way of protecting herself in a world that might judge her harshly if it learned the truth. Behind her polished exterior lay a woman carrying the weight of secrets and vulnerabilities she rarely let anyone see. Their worlds came together at the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts during a charity gala. Surrounded by elegance and good intentions, Pastor Waverly and Judge Caldwell met and felt an instant connection. They shared similar values: commitment, integrity, and living according to principles they believed in. For Waverly, Caldwell seemed like someone who understood the importance of staying true to oneself. For Caldwell, Waverly represented stability and conviction, qualities she admired deeply. Their bond grew quickly, built on what they thought they knew about each other. But beneath their shared beliefs were deeper truths neither had revealed, the fears, regrets, and personal battles they carried silently. Their story took them to the Rittenhouse Hotel, a place of luxury where dreams often unfold. It was here, surrounded by beauty and comfort, that their brief happiness began, and ended so tragically. In this grand setting, the masks they wore slipped away, revealing realities neither was fully prepared to face. Through glimpses of their pasts and quiet reflections, we see how their journeys led them here. The childhoods that shaped them, the decisions that defined them, and the burdens they carried into each other's lives. In the city of brotherly love, where reputations depend on appearances, these two souls found themselves caught between the expectations of others and the complexities of their own hearts. Their tale reminds us that everyone carries secrets and struggles, and sometimes, even the strongest facades can crack under pressure. In the days that followed their meeting at the Kimmel Center, Pastor Dion Waverly and Judge Sarah Caldwell found themselves drawn to one another with a magnetic force neither could fully explain. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, blending shared values with an unspoken understanding of what it meant to navigate life in a world that demanded perfection. For Waverly, Caldwell represented everything he had hoped for in a partner, someone who understood the importance of commitment, tradition, and integrity. For Caldwell, Waverly was a beacon of stability, a man whose unwavering principles offered her a refuge from the chaos she had known in her past. Their whirlwind romance unfolded against the backdrop of Philadelphia's bustling streets, where each encounter deepened their connection. They spent evenings walking through the historic cobblestone alleys of Old City, sharing stories of their dreams and aspirations. To the outside world, they seemed like two halves of a single whole, their union destined to be celebrated as a testament to love conquering all. And indeed, it wasn't long before whispers of their relationship reached the ears of friends, colleagues, and even strangers who admired them from afar. On June 17, 2023, under the watchful gaze of family, friends, and members of the community, Waverly and Caldwell exchanged vows at Christ Church in Old City. The church, steeped in history and grandeur, provided the perfect setting for a ceremony that captured the hearts of all who attended. Media coverage glorified them as the perfect couple, a shining example of how traditional values could still thrive in a modern world. But behind the smiles and accolades lay truths neither dared to fully confront. For Waverly, his rigid beliefs about purity were not merely a matter of faith. They were a shield against the pain of his childhood. Growing up in Germantown, he had witnessed firsthand the destruction wrought by his parents' tumultuous marriage, a cycle of betrayal and mistrust that left him yearning for something better. In Caldwell, he saw a chance to rewrite his own story, to build a life rooted in the ideals he so fervently preached. Yet beneath this hope lingered a fear that the imperfections he worked so hard to suppress might one day resurface, threatening the fragile balance he had created. For Caldwell, the pressure to maintain appearances weighed heavily on her shoulders. Her past, a tapestry woven from over 50 relationships and years of grappling with chronic medical issues, was a burden she carried alone. Fear of judgment kept her silent, forcing her to construct a persona that aligned with societal expectations while burying the truth beneath layers of carefully curated words and actions. She admired Waverly's conviction, seeing in it a reflection of the strength she wished she possessed. But deep down, she knew there were parts of herself she could never reveal, not without risking the collapse of the life she had painstakingly built. As the weeks leading up to their wedding passed, hints of underlying tension began to surface, though neither acknowledged them outright. There were moments when Waverly's idealism clashed with Caldwell's pragmatism, brief disagreements that hinted at deeper divides. He spoke often of building a future based on mutual respect and trust, words that resonated deeply with Caldwell but also filled her with dread. Could she truly live up to the image he envisioned? Could he accept the person she really was if ever she chose to share her secrets? And yet, despite these doubts, they pressed forward, fueled by the belief that love would bridge any gap between them. On the surface, they appeared unstoppable, a couple united by shared goals and a vision for the future. But beneath this facade lay unresolved questions, unspoken fears, and hidden truths waiting to unravel the very foundation upon which their relationship rested. As the clock ticked closer to their wedding day, the stage was set for a collision of realities, a moment when the weight of their suppressed selves would inevitably come crashing down. In the city of brotherly love, where reputations are built on ideals and secrets lie just beneath the surface, the journey of Waverly and Caldwell served as a reminder that even the most seemingly perfect unions can harbor shadows too profound to ignore. The night was meant to be the culmination of their journey, a celebration of love, trust, and unity. The Rittenhouse Hotel, with its opulent decor and air of sophistication, provided the perfect setting for what should have been the most intimate moment of their lives. But as the hours unfolded, the room transformed from a sanctuary of new beginnings into a place where hidden truths collided with rigid ideals, shattering the fragile illusion they had built together. It began innocently enough, Two hearts coming together in the quiet solitude of their suite. For Waverly, this was the fulfillment of a lifelong belief that purity and commitment would lead to a sacred bond untouched by the imperfections of the world. For Caldwell, it was a chance to embrace something she had long sought, a connection rooted in trust and understanding. Yet, beneath the surface, unease lingered, an unspoken tension that neither could fully escape. As they drew closer, Waverly noticed something unusual, an odor that seemed out of place, a subtle hint at a reality he wasn't prepared to confront. His body tensed, his mind racing with questions he couldn't ignore. When he asked her about it, Caldwell hesitated, her composure faltering for the first time since they met. In that moment, the walls she had so carefully constructed began to crumble. With tears in her eyes and a voice trembling with vulnerability, she confessed her past. Her extensive sexual history, the relationships she had tried to leave behind, and the medical issues that stemmed from them. Waverly listened, his face pale with shock and disbelief. Everything he believed about their union, everything he thought he knew about her, came crashing down in an instant. The man who had preached purity and sanctity found himself face to face with a truth that defied his deepest convictions. Disgust washed over him, not just at the revelation but at the betrayal he felt in his heart. How could someone he trusted so completely carry such a burden without telling him? His words were sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. "This marriage is over," he declared, his voice filled with anger and pain. "I want a divorce." Caldwell's reaction was immediate and visceral. She stood between him and the door, her voice rising in desperation. "You can't just walk away from this. You don't understand what I've been through." Her plea was laced with emotion, a mixture of fear, regret, and a desperate need for validation. But Waverly's resolve was firm. He pushed past her, determined to leave the room, and their marriage, behind. What happened next unfolded in a blur of movement and chaos. As Caldwell blocked his path, a struggle erupted, fueled by raw emotions and pent-up frustrations. In the heat of the moment, Waverly shoved her aside, his actions driven by a mix of fury and instinct. Caldwell stumbled backward, her footing lost on the plush carpet. Time seemed to slow as she fell, her head striking the marble nightstand with a sickening thud. The sound echoed through the room, piercing the air like a final note in a tragic symphony. Waverly froze, his breath catching in his throat as he watched Caldwell collapse to the floor. For a moment, there was only silence, broken only by the rapid beating of his own heart. Then reality set in, crushing him with its weight. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands shaking as he checked for a pulse. Nothing. Panic surged through him, overwhelming every thought, every feeling. Grabbing his phone, he dialed 911, his voice cracking with despair. "Please, please help. I think she's dead." In those moments, as he sat on the floor of the hotel room, surrounded by the remnants of their shattered dreams, Waverly was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, guilt, horror, and an unbearable sense of loss. The intimacy they had shared mere hours before now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the brutal revelation of their hidden truths. What had started as a night of promise ended in tragedy, leaving behind more questions than answers. As the sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the arrival of help too late to make a difference, Waverly stared at Caldwell's still form, his mind reeling. How had it come to this? How had two people, bound by love and respect, been brought low by secrets they couldn't, or wouldn't, share? The answers lay buried in the complexities of their lives, in the choices they made and the expectations they carried. And as the world outside intruded on their private catastrophe, one thing became painfully clear. Sometimes, the pursuit of perfection can lead to the greatest imperfections of all. The courtroom of the Philadelphia County Courthouse was electric with anticipation as the trial began on January 9, 2024. The case of Pastor Dion Waverly had captured national attention, drawing in spectators from all walks of life, each bringing their own opinions, biases, and questions about morality, justice, and human frailty. At the heart of it all sat Waverly, his face a mask of stoic resolve, though the weight of the proceedings pressed heavily upon him. Waverly faced charges of murder, but his defense team argued fervently for involuntary manslaughter, claiming that Caldwell's death was not an act of malice but rather a tragic accident born of chaos and misunderstanding. The prosecution insisted that Waverly's actions qualified as voluntary manslaughter, citing his emotional reaction to Caldwell's confession as proof of intent. The defense countered that his actions were reflexive, born of panic and fear during a chaotic struggle. As closing arguments approached, the jury listened intently, their faces revealing little of what they thought or felt. The fate of Pastor Dion Waverly rested in their hands, but the truth remained elusive, a tangled web of emotions, secrets, and circumstances that defied easy answers. And so, the trial moved forward, each piece of evidence, each witness statement, each impassioned plea contributing to a mosaic of humanity laid bare. In the city of brotherly love, where reputations are built on ideals and secrets lie just beneath the surface, the world watched, and waited, to see how justice would be served. The courtroom fell silent as the final arguments echoed through the Philadelphia County Courthouse, each word carrying the weight of lives forever changed. The prosecution rose first, their voice steady and unwavering. They painted a vivid picture of that fateful night at the Rittenhouse Hotel, a night when emotions spiraled out of control, when provocation gave way to passion, and when passion turned deadly. Under Pennsylvania law, they argued, Waverly's actions fit squarely within the definition of voluntary manslaughter. His reaction to Caldwell's confession was not one of calm deliberation but of sudden, overwhelming emotion, a surge of anger, disgust, and betrayal that clouded his judgment and led him to push her with force he could not contain. This was no accident, the prosecutor declared, pointing to the evidence of the struggle and the defensive wounds on Waverly's body. This was an act born of heat and passion, provoked by truths he could not accept. Then came the defense, their tone measured yet fierce. They countered that Waverly's actions were not premeditated nor driven by malice but were instead reactive, a desperate response to a chaotic situation. In those moments, they argued, Waverly was not thinking clearly. He was reacting instinctively, caught in the throes of panic and fear as Caldwell blocked his exit. The defense pointed to the surveillance footage, which showed no signs of planning or aggression before the altercation. They highlighted the medical examiner's testimony, which confirmed that Caldwell's injuries were consistent with a fall, not a deliberate strike. And they called upon the character witnesses who had spoken so passionately about Waverly's peaceful nature, his history of avoiding conflict, and his reputation as a man of faith and integrity. What happened that night was tragic, the defense attorney conceded, but it was not murder. It was not even voluntary manslaughter. It was a moment of chaos, a moment where human frailty collided with hidden truths, and the result was a tragedy no one could have foreseen. As the final words were spoken, the judge instructed the jury to deliberate, reminding them of the distinctions between voluntary and involuntary manslaughter under Pennsylvania law. Voluntary manslaughter, he explained, occurs when someone kills another in the heat of passion after being provoked, when emotions overwhelm reason and lead to fatal consequences. Involuntary manslaughter, on the other hand, involves unintentional killing due to reckless or negligent behavior, a far less severe offense. The burden of proof rested on the jury to determine which category, if either, applied to Waverly's actions. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the jurors filed out to begin their deliberations. Outside, the world waited, divided in its opinions. Some believed Waverly's actions were justified, a natural reaction to the shocking revelation of Caldwell's past. Others condemned him, seeing his behavior as a violent betrayal of the very principles he preached. Family members sat in tense silence, their faces reflecting the turmoil within. Media personnel jotted down notes, capturing every nuance of the moment for audiences across the country. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, their voices rising in protest or support, adding to the cacophony of emotions swirling around the case. Inside the jury room, The 12 individuals tasked with deciding Waverly's fate grappled with the complexities of the evidence. They debated the meaning of provocation, the role of intent, and the impact of hidden truths on human behavior. Each juror brought their own perspective, their own biases, and their own understanding of justice to the table. 4 hours, the deliberations stretched on, punctuated by moments of agreement and disagreement, compromise and conviction. Through it all, the weight of their decision pressed heavily upon them, knowing that their verdict would not only define Waverly's future but also reflect broader societal values about morality, accountability, and forgiveness. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere was palpable. Spectators shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes fixed on the closed door behind which the jury deliberated. Family members exchanged nervous glances, while reporters whispered among themselves, speculating on possible outcomes. The camera panned across the room, capturing the raw emotion etched into every face: the hope, the fear, the uncertainty. This was more than just a trial. It was a reflection of the human condition, a reminder that even the most seemingly perfect lives can harbor secrets too profound to ignore, and that the pursuit of justice is rarely simple or straightforward. And so, the minutes ticked by, each one heavy with the promise of resolution and the specter of unanswered questions. As the jury continued their deliberations, the world outside paused, holding its breath, waiting to see how justice would be served, or if, in this complex tapestry of truth and consequence, justice could ever truly be found. As the jury continues its deliberations, the courtroom falls into a hush, the weight of unanswered questions hanging heavy in the air. Outside, the city of Philadelphia stirs to life, indifferent to the drama unfolding within those walls. Yet, for those involved, for Pastor Dion Waverly, for the family and friends of Judge Sarah Caldwell, for the spectators who have followed this case with rapt attention, the outcome feels anything but distant. It is personal, profound, and impossibly complex. In a world where perfection is often an illusion, we are reminded that no life is without its shadows. Pastor Waverly, once seen as a paragon of moral virtue, now stands accused of actions that challenge the very ideals he preached. His journey from the pulpit to the defendant's chair serves as a stark reminder of how easily the masks we wear can slip, revealing truths both painful and unexpected. And then there is Judge Caldwell, a woman admired for her intellect and dedication, yet burdened by secrets she could not share. Her death has left behind more questions than answers, forcing us to confront the fragility of human relationships and the consequences of unspoken truths. What happens when the truth shatters the facades we so carefully construct? When the ideals we cling to collide with the realities of our lives, how do we reconcile the two? For Waverly, this collision came in the form of Caldwell's confession, a revelation that shattered his expectations and sent him spiraling into chaos. For Caldwell, it was the fear of judgment, the inability to bridge the gap between who she was and who society expected her to be. Their story is not just one of tragedy but also one of humanity, a testament to the complexities of love, trust, and the imperfections that make us who we are. As Pastor Waverly awaits his fate, we are left to grapple with the broader implications of this case. Can justice truly be served when the lines between right and wrong blur so easily? Is it possible to hold someone accountable for their actions without acknowledging the circumstances that led them there? And what of forgiveness? Can it exist in a world where wounds run too deep to heal, where secrets cut like knives and truths leave lasting scars? Justice isn't always black and white. It's messy, complicated, and deeply personal. This story is just one example of how hidden truths, rigid ideals, and human emotions can collide in ways no one ever expects. But what do you believe happened that night at the Rittenhouse Hotel? Was it a crime of passion, an accident, or something else entirely? Let us know where you stand. Your perspective matters. Join the conversation in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Vic's True Crime Stories for more gripping tales that delve into the intricate layers of justice, morality, and the human heart. Your voice could be the next piece of this unfolding puzzle.